Good morning, good evening to everyone. I think here in Jordan and in the Arab world, we have a nice morning today, and I'm sure that your evening, Tim, is always well in Melbourne. Welcome to our today's QRTA talk. We are so excited to have you with us today. And before we start, we will spare some time to allow our audience to join us. So in the meantime, we would love to know where you are joining us from. So please take a moment to share your country in the chat box. Great, thank you so much. Yeah, please share your countries in the chat box. I can see people from Jeddah, people from Kurdistan, people also from Kuwait, also people from Lebanon, Aisha from Amman, Ilham from Jordan, and I can see Russia from Saudi Arabia. I can see Arwa from Jordan, Michelle, Deloitte from Kuwait, Khalid Al-Azam maybe from the United Arab Emirates. Hello from Lebanon, Natalie, and Wafa, Saraira from Jordan as well. Yeah, very interesting kickoff, Dr. Tim. We have more than 250 participants, and I think the number will be increasing. So we'll just spare half a minute so that our audience and education community here in Jordan, in the Arab world, and also globally can join us. Isaf from Lebanon, Batul from Jordan, Muthanna from Jordan, Ismail Aujnaid from Jordan. From Morocco, we have Ashraf. And from United Arab Emirates, we have Marwa Murad. Ravi from Kuwait. A lot of people from the Gulf region. Rana, she is an early grade teacher from Jordan as well. Mohsen from the United Arab Emirates. ونود تذكيركم أعزائي الكرام بأن خدمة الترجمة الفورية للغة العربية متوفرة لهذه الجلسة، فبإمكانكم الضغط على أيقونة الكرة الأرضية لتستمتعوا بهذه الجلسة باللغة العربية. So I just told the audience that also we have and we are offering Arabic interpretation, instant interpretation, so that they can enjoy the session in Arabic as well. We have people from Syria, Madeline from Syria, Kazim from Lebanon, and Munir Ilham from Dubai International School, and Ishaq from Mauritania. Welcome, Ishaq. Hello, Latifa from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, and Russia as well from Saudi Arabia. And also we'd like to announce that attendance certificates will be issued and sent to your emails within a couple of days from the end of this webinar. We have Arwa from Qatar and Raja from Qatar as well, Nadine from Syria, Firas from Jordan. We have more than 300 now. So it's a very exciting kickoff, Dr. Tim. Thank you so much. So also we'd just like to announce again that Arabic translation, instant interpretation is available, so that if you'd like to enjoy the session in Arabic, you can do by clicking on the earth, the globe sign, and choose Arabic. ونود إعلامكم أيضا بأن خدمة الترجمة الفورية للغة العربية متوفرة لهذه الجلسة لمن يريد الاستماع والاستمتاع بهذا الحديث التربوي الشيق مع الدكتور تيم فريدمان من خلال الضغط على أيقونة الكرة الأرضية واختيار اللغة العربية. So, good morning and good evening again, and welcome to this exceptional Queen Rania Teacher Academy webinar, an event designed to spark insight, inspire action, and elevate professional dialogue across our educational community here in Jordan and in the region. I am Shad Al Khouli, English Language Programs Lead at Queen Rania Teacher Academy, and I'm very honored and privileged to be this session moderator to Dr. Tim Friedman. Today's session, TALIS 2024, using data to support a vibrant and future-focused teaching profession, invites us into a global conversation about the teaching profession, its challenges, its evolution, and the opportunities shaping its future. Actually, we are very proud that we've started 2025 by a guest, Dr. Schleicher from OECD, talking about PISA and the future of schools. And also, we are very actually honored to end this year with a talk from Dr. Tim Friedman. We'll be talking about TALIS and OECD's flagship international survey, which amplifies the voices of teachers and school leaders, offering reliable comparative data that helps us understand what energizes educators, what pressures they face, and what innovations are transforming classrooms around the world. With insights from 55 education systems, including 4 Arabic-speaking countries, the findings could not be more relevant or timely for our region. Today's conversation resonates deeply with QRTA's mission, which is to empower educators through high-quality professional learning and to cultivate a teaching profession that is dynamic, reflective, and future-ready. It echoes our vision at QRTA to enable teachers to lead change, to elevate learning, and to shape thriving learning environments across Jordan and beyond. By exploring TALIS 2024 findings together, we take another meaningful step towards strengthening the profession and reinforcing QRTA's mandate to evidence-driven, world-class teacher development. We are truly honored to be joined by a distinguished expert whose work sits at the heart of today's topic. Dr. Tim Friedman, you are mostly welcome as our keynote speaker today. Dr. Tim is a senior teacher or research fellow at the Australian Council for Educational Research, ACER, and the international project manager for TALIS in Australia. We are actually so privileged to have you today. Dr. Tim has played a pivotal role in major international assessments and led ACER's contributions to the design and analysis of contextual questionnaires for landmark studies, including the OECD's International Early Learning and Child Wellbeing Study, IELS, the Southeast Asia Primary Learning Metrics, SEA-PLM, and Australia's National Assessments of ICT Literacy, Science Literacy, and Civics and Citizenship. Dr. Friedman brings a unique blend of technical expertise and a global perspective, making complex data not only understandable, but truly meaningful. So please join me in warmly welcoming Dr. Tim Friedman.
Thank
Hi
you so
again,
much.
Dr. Tim.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shadi. That was really a really warm and generous introduction.
Thank you.
So I'm hoping that my presentation will come on the screen in a moment. I just get confirmation that it can be seen okay?
Right. Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I just want to begin by firstly saying I'm really quite humbled, honored to be invited here to speak for the Queen Rania Teacher Academy. The work that this organization does is really well known in the Middle East, but also even the other side of the world here in Australia. The efforts of the organization are really well known and respected. And I'm really quite uh, privileged that I can come and speak about such an important topic such as TALIS today. Before I begin my presentation, I just want to also give thanks to two other groups, and firstly the OECD for running such an important study such as TALIS, which is really the global benchmark for all teacher studies. And the results that I'm going to present today come primarily from their international report. But I want to reserve my biggest set of thanks to the hundreds of thousands of teachers and school principals that participated in the TALIS study. Without their efforts, these sorts of findings could not be made public. So the teachers, as we know, all do an amazing job. Some of our findings show us that they have quite a lot of workload, all these extra paperwork and forms they have to fill out, yet they still found time to participate in this study and give us really rich and valuable data. So, to begin with, I'm going to talk about what TALIS is. So, TALIS is the OECD's Teaching and Learning International Survey. There's a framework designed that outlines the key areas in which TALIS covers, and I'll talk about that shortly. But the content is really relevant to educators, teachers, school principals. Why does this study matter? Well, it gives a voice to teachers and provides comparable evidence that we can use to inform policy. And the study essentially involves questionnaires administered to the teacher population, but also the school leader population, administered to teachers and school educators in a way that enables us to make uh, findings broadly generalized to the entire populations. Okay, so if I now go to the topic of which teachers participate in TALIS. TALIS, as I mentioned, primarily collects data from lower secondary teachers and principals. So there are data collections as part of TALIS, looking at other groups of teachers. Some countries also collect data for primary teachers and also upper secondary teachers. And the OECD also produced another study called Starting Strong that's aimed at the preschool level as well. And the results of that just got released very recently. The schools are first sampled within countries, and it's a random sample, and then the teachers within those schools are selected in there. But the teachers are sampled in a way that we know we can make uh, broad implications about the whole population, not just about the teachers that participated in TALIS. And there were three data collections involved with this cycle of TALIS. Firstly, the questionnaires were piloted. In 2023, there was a large-scale field trial. And in 2024, the main survey took place. And TALIS sampled around 280,000 teachers worldwide from 17,000 schools, 15 different educational systems. And you can see here that this slide goes into what are the different content areas that are outlined into the framework. So, for example, the there's information about teachers' learning and development, including their initial teacher education, professional learning, information about teachers' work practices, so their teaching practices and professional practices, occupational perceptions, institutional environments, but it also looks at contemporary issues of the day, so diversity and equity, educational use of technology, and including artificial intelligence, which we know is a very hot topic right now, social and emotional learning of students, and the environmental sustainability of education. This last topic isn't actually included in the current report released by the OECD, but it will be included in a future report. Dr. Shadi, feel free to stop me at any stage if you wanted to ask any
Yeah,
questions,
of
but I'll.
course. Thank you so much, Dr. Tim, for giving us a briefing about what is TALIS, what does it cover, and why it matters. So, can I just ask you a question? Since TALIS aims to give teachers a voice, what do you see as the most important message teachers are sending us globally?
So it's really good that it does provide that voice. So I think what TELUS really highlights for us is what are the areas that teachers really value in their teaching and in their workplace. But it also highlights potential challenges and obstacles. We know that if we want to drive improvement in our students, teachers are really possibly the most important way to do that. So, what are some of the challenges that teachers are experiencing that might limit them from fulfilling their full ability to educate our students? And TALIS really provides insight into a lot of broad areas on the sorts of things that can be done to potentially improve the environment for teaching.
Great, thank you so much. And if I ask you another question related to Jordan's participation, actually, Jordan participates in TEMIS and Pearl rather than Talus. And we are lucky actually to hear yesterday that Jordan is joining the coming and future cycle of Talus report. So, based on your experience, what would Jordan and other countries in the region and in the world gain if they join Talus in future cycles?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, firstly, Jordan should be praised for its long-standing participation in the really the big international studies. So, certainly PISA, IEA's TIMS, and IEA's Pearls, probably the three biggest international student studies. I think there's quite a lot of data collected over time for that. So these large-scale assessments really provide rich, valuable data that can be used to inform policy. But it's always better to have, data informed policy rather than using, I guess, sort of less rigorous forms of data collection. And while PISA, TIMS, Pearls are really high quality studies, they're complemented really well by TELUS. Because those other studies are more focused on at the student level, and they do include some data collections from teachers, it's more about the context for learning for students. Whereas TELUS is able to go into much richer details about the context for teaching. So they're the two differences. But we would certainly see that those two types of studies really complement each other quite well.
Thank you.
Dr. Shadi, that's quite a nice segue into my next slide about the value of TALIS in terms of comparative data. So we really see that TALIS is, and I should say this works as well for those other studies that I mentioned as well. But the first comparisons that can be made is comparisons across education systems. Now, certainly in a study like TALIS, we are not looking at assessment data, although I should say that this cycle of TALIS did include a professional knowledge assessment that some countries have participated in. But the primary focus for TALIS is really about contextual information for teachers and schools. And it's really important, in my opinion, to be able to have a look at what the contexts are in your own country and see how they compare against other countries. And I'll tell you this, anybody that's had a good look at the TALIS data will see that in every country there are some real strengths, and every country there are certainly some things that can be improved to be better. And by allowing us to see what other countries are doing, it enables us to sort of learn from each other. And I think the TELUS, and I should say the OECD community and all these studies are really quite supportive and collaborative atmospheres. People are always willing to sort of share, well, we had this problem. This is what we did to potentially solve that. And that leads me to the next point about comparisons over time. I think TELUS is really rich in this regards because this has been run for 4 cycles now. Countries that have participated in all cycles now have 4 different data points. So, for example, in Australia, we're able to have a look at what happened in 2018 and what happened in 2024. Did we get better in the areas that we tried to improve on? Did we get worse in some areas? What can we learn from that? So it really gives you that great insight over multiple points in time. And we know that there's two of the Middle East participants have 2 points of data, which is really quite valuable for them. And finally, TELUS is able to provide us really great comparative data within the countries, looking at different groups of the population. So we can have a look at are there certain challenges or strengths that male teachers have compared to female teachers, looking at novice teachers versus more experienced teachers. But there's a much bigger list of comparisons that can be made. Teachers in more disadvantaged areas versus teachers in more advantaged areas, for example. And the TALIS report gives quite a lot of rich detail into these comparisons.
Great.
So I'm really now going to start in talking about some of the results from TALIS. As I mentioned before, that we were able to draw from the OECD's international report, and there is the link there. You can do a search on your browser, TALIS international report, and you'll find it quite easily. And the OECD have is possibly one of the most dense reports you'll ever see in terms of there is so much information in there, very long appendices, which for people who are data nerds like me, it's just such a wonderful resource in there. So you can spend days, weeks going through all the different tables in there. I wish I had a chance to show you everything. I can't possibly. We'd be going for many hours. So
Yeah.
we've just done a very small selection of some findings that I hope you'll find very interesting. As I mentioned before, the core focus is on lower secondary teachers, but there is some data in those reports about other levels, primary and upper secondary. And of course, the OECD's Starting Strong survey will give you some insights about preschool education. We do reference the OECD average in this report as well, in this presentation. It's the average of OECD countries, and it gives us a good sort of benchmark about how countries are performing against that average. There's 4 participating Arabic-speaking countries: Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and United Arab Emirates. I was thrilled to see that we had some participants from those countries here, so hope you'll pay special attention. And of course, as we heard, Jordan didn't actually participate in this a cycle of TELUS, but we know that they have a rich history in other studies. So in some occasions, we have included some data from the IEA TIMS to the 2023 study from the teacher population there. They're not quite the equivalent populations, but some comparisons can certainly be made. Dr. Chadi, are we ready to go on to some of the results now?
Yeah, of course. Very interesting. And thank you, Dr. Tim, because you are summarizing around 400 pages of a report. And actually, I spent like weeks going through the report and the 100-page of appendices. So actually, thank you so much. And we are really appreciative of the time that you are giving us today and just manifesting the most important messages and takeaways from the result. Thank you so much, Doctor. Can I just mention something in the in response to the chat? Actually, we have Arabic instant interpretation. لذلك تتوفر خدمة الترجمة باللغة العربية خلال هذه الجلسة، فبإمكانكم الاستماع والاستمتاع بهذه الجلسة من خلال الضغط على 3 نقاط مور المزيد، واختيار أيقونة الكرة الأرضية، ومن ثم اختيار اللغة العربية. وأيضا ستتوفر هنالك شهادات خلال اليومين القادمين، وسترسل إلى إيميلاتكم مباشرة، وسيكون أيضا هنالك جزء للإجابة على أسئلتكم. وشكرا لكم جميعا. Thank you so much, Doctor. So we can continue now.
Right. So the first set of results I'm going to present talking about who are our teachers and how have they been trained. As I said before, the data that we're showing is from a sample of teachers in each country, but it's a sample designed in a way that we can make these teachers are representative of the whole country. So you can have confidence that these findings are not just specific to only those teachers that participated in TALIS. The OECD spends a lot of efforts to make sure that these findings are representative of all the teachers in the country for the lower secondary level. So what we show here, firstly, you can see on the left, we're having a look about the teaching experience. The first thing that we have a look here, you can see that we see that the 4 Arabic TALIS participants, we have data from Jordan, from TIMS, and we can do some sort of comparison against the OECD average. And the first thing I take out of this finding is we see that the teachers from the Arabic speaking countries generally are a little bit less experienced than teachers than the average from OECD countries. So, for example, if we compare the data from Jordan, we see that 28% have 5 or less years experience, but compared to the OECD average is 18%. So Jordan has a much higher proportion of teachers who are less experienced. And if we look at the right, you can sort of see that this is the average age of the teachers. And you can see there that the OECD average is a little bit older than the average from the Arabic speaking countries. In the middle, we can see in a graph that's a little bit tiny. I hope you can see it okay. And this looks at the highest education level of teachers in the different countries. So did they have a degree below the undergraduate level? Did they have a bachelor's degree, or did they have a master's or doctorate? And I guess one of the key takeaways we can see from this is on average, teachers had a master's degree, more likely in the OECD average compared to the Arabic speaking countries.
Yeah, can I
So,
just say something, Doctor?
yes, Dr. Shadi?
Since we are referring to the percentage of 28% percent of teachers in Jordan have 5 or less years of experience here in Jordan. And we can see that a lot of early career teachers, maybe globally, are joining the teaching profession with maybe no experience or a bit of experience. And here in Jordan and in QRTA in particular, this year, we have around 8,000 in-service teachers joining our teacher professional diploma, teacher education professional diploma. And all of those teachers, they have less than 5 years of experience, which is vitally important for them to get some insights from TALIS report. So what does TALIS tell us about how systems can better support teachers in their first 5 years of experience?
Firstly, Dr. Shetty, I'd like to say that I see that as quite a positive finding that the average age and experience is relatively low. It means that countries in the Middle East are doing a good job in recruiting new teachers. So that's the first thing that I would take away from that. The TELS report, it goes into a lot of detail about comparing younger or more inexperienced teachers versus more experienced teachers. They tend to have a lot of poorer outcomes, which certainly makes sense. Teaching, obviously, the more experience you have, the more knowledge you have in certain areas, more able to have resilience in other areas. I think we really need to do a good job in supporting these inexperienced teachers. We know, for example, that often the inexperienced teachers are put in more difficult teaching assignments. So often there's a common pattern across many of the TALIS countries that the younger and experienced teachers tend to go work at schools that are in higher proportion of disadvantaged students. So I think what we can do, and some of the data will show this, that we can put some systems in place to really help support them. Things like mentoring, induction programs at schools really do make a difference, giving them a lot of professional support.
Thank you.
Okay, so going to the next slide, and this just fits this what we just said quite nicely. Just to look at some of the context for what are the types of classrooms that teachers are teaching in. And what we have here is we have a set of, I guess, demographic questions. So the first one is about the proportion of teachers teaching in schools where 10% of the students have difficulties understanding the language of instruction. Now, this might be something that's more common in multilingual environments, and you'll see the item below sort of deals with that. I guess what I would, how I would interpret these findings is I would have a look at the yellow bar, that's the OECD average, and then I'd have a look about the pattern of results for the Arabic speaking countries. And one thing you can see is that there's no uniformity to how the Arabic speaking countries, and I obviously don't need to explain to the people in this meeting that there are obviously four very different countries, very different contexts for teaching. So you can see some differences between the countries there, but generally more teachers in the Arabic speaking countries are working in schools with more students with they have difficulties understanding the language of instruction. You can see something similar, although it does move around a bit depending on the country. I see certainly the results for Saudi Arabia are very different to the results from United Arab Emirates and Morocco there. But we see there's some differences in the proportions of students that their first language is different from the language of instruction. We can see the third one is about students that are low academic achievers. And we see Morocco certainly stands out differently from the other countries there. The fourth one about students that are academically gifted students. We see teachers teaching in classrooms where there's higher proportions of academically gifted students that should be. And that last one is about teachers teaching in schools with special education needs. Now, this one's a little bit funny. You see that the OECD average is much higher than the Arabic speaking countries. It's probably something to do with the way that question's worded, where it requires some sort of formal diagnosis. So that might be something different culturally about how students with these sorts of needs are diagnosed in the OECD countries compared to the Arabic speaking countries. And a similar set of findings on this slide, you see that there's differences in the proportions of students that have behavioral problems, the OECD average compared to several of the Arabic speaking countries, the proportion of teachers working in classrooms with a higher socioeconomically disadvantaged homes, and we see Morocco certainly stands out there compared to the other countries. more than 10% of students belonging to ethnic, national minorities, or indigenous communities. Here we see that Bahrain stands out higher than the other countries. And we see more than 60% of students are male. And we see there's some quite interesting contrasts there. And finally, about students that are coming from an immigrant or migrant background. That just helps paint the context of these are the classrooms that the teachers are working in. Now, I'm going to move on now to some findings about initial teacher education and professional learning. So you'll see here two slides, two graphs about initial teacher education. The one on the left shows us that teachers generally rate the quality of their initial teacher education quite highly. In fact, the Arabic-speaking countries, or at least three of the Arabic-speaking countries, they rated the quality of their initial teacher education much higher than the average from OECD countries. And on the right, this is I guess, collapse findings across the whole international TALIS population. Tells us about how the initial teacher education prepared teachers for teaching. And what we can see is that the initial teacher education generally prepared them quite well, or large majorities of teachers quite well, for the content of subject they teach, for the pedagogy, and for classroom practice. They didn't feel quite so well prepared in teaching in multicultural or multilingual settings, also less prepared in the use of digital resources and supporting students' social and emotional development. Now, if we move on to professional learning now, you can see here the types of professional learning that teachers are doing in the past 12 months. So, including knowledge of the subject, digital resources and ICT, and things like pedagogical skills and for incorporating digital resources. You can see some of the topics that are getting a little bit less attention. So certainly use of AI for teaching and learning. And I should remind you all that this data collection was 2024. You'd probably expect these sorts of things might change, if it was this same data was collected right now. There's less people doing professional learning in things like school management and administration and teaching in a multicultural and multilingual setting, which we saw before was something that the teachers didn't feel so prepared in. And I think this is really interesting to see about this graph shows you the proportion of teachers who find professional learning impactful. So the first thing I would look at there is looking at that yellow line with the OECD average, and what we can see there that it's we see that there's roughly 60% or something of teachers find their professional learning quite helpful. But you can see that the on the left, you're seeing that the our Arabic speaking countries who are highlighted in green, they're actually rating that their professional learning was more impactful than the average of other countries. They tend to be, particularly Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. The teachers are really rating their professional learning quite high. And what the blue bars mean in some countries, and certainly the average of OECD countries and in some other countries, what we're seeing is the early career teachers that are in particular finding the professional learning more impactful, and that makes sense. The early career teachers have more that they can learn. Now, something that I know many of you are probably quite interested in, uh, how are teachers using AI? Again, I'll remind you that this is from 2024, but what we see that on average, we see that the OECD average, about 40% of teachers, maybe just under, are using AI for teaching in the previous year. What we can see though is that three of our Arabic speaking countries are using it more than the average. And in fact, United Arab Emirates are all the way at the very end. They're the most prolific users of AI in teaching. So that would be certainly something that I hope they're able to sort of share about their experiences in giving teachers access to AI and training and things like that. Now, what do we know? What are teachers using AI for? Again, this is collapsed at the OECD average level. We know that they're using it a lot for learning and summarizing a topic. We know that they're using it a lot for generating lessons, plans, and activities. You can see some of the other activities that they're using it for, but a little bit less frequently. they're not using it quite so well to assess or mark student work. In my opinion, that's because the technology probably hasn't been quite there just yet, but I think it's in making big improvements there. And they're not also using it as much to review students' participation or performance in class. Again, I would expect they'll rise. Now, the what are some of the barriers about using AI? Well, certainly a lot of the teachers feel that don't have the knowledge and the skills to teach using AI. I don't blame them as well, given the speed that the technology is being developed. We know that in some cases the schools are lacking infrastructure, or I guess sort of in some cases they're not even allowed to use it. And some teachers are feeling a little bit overwhelmed with the technology.
Can I just ask a question, Dr. Tim, about the use of AI? Yeah, actually, thank you so much for this slide and the previous slide talking about the impact of professional learning and professional development on teachers' performance at schools. And we can see that in the Arab region, it is praised and welcomed. And we see here also in Jordan that professional development is very impactful, especially when we visit our schools. And I'm sure the case is the same in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and other countries. So, since we are talking about AI, a lot of schools actually in Jordan and the Arab region are still exploring AI tools. So, what does the TALIS data suggest about how prepared teachers feel to use AI in meaningful and ethical ways?
Yeah, Dr. Shane, it's again another really good question. So there is more AI data that TAL's able to provide. I didn't quite include this in this presentation, but it's certainly about what they see. I guess some of the positives and negatives. I will say that the teachers around the world, including the Arabic teachers, it's really good to see that they're being excited about using it, but they're also being very mindful about how they're using it. They've suggested that it's an area that they'd like to get more professional development in. Um, the teachers want to use it, they just don't always have the skills and knowledge how to do that. But I should say as well, they're being mindful in the way that they do have some concerns and want the appropriate safeguards in place. They have some concerns that students will use it to create work that is not their own. So some sort of plagiarism or really sort of I guess sort of producing the work and not necessarily learning. And they're also have some concerns that the AI might produce some inappropriate content, but also potentially amplify different pre-existing biases as well. So yeah, to summarize though, they want to use it. They have some concerns, but I think there's as long as the appropriate safeguards are in place, then there's great potential.
Yeah. Actually, one of the participants, Mr. Loai, has said something about a platform here in Jordan prepared by the Ministry of Education. It's called Siraj platform that helps teachers on prepare their content using AI tools. Thank you so much, Mr. Loai, to share this. And also, we'll get back to your insights and also expertise, our dear audience, by the end of today's session. Yes, please, Dr. Tim.
Right. I always love when people sort of share what their experiences in their countries. This is really the point of these
Yeah,
types of studies is to learn from each other.
sure.
Okay, so how do our teachers feel? So I'll start off with some of the positives. Firstly, and this is again sort of collapse findings from the average of OECD countries, that generally the teachers are feeling quite satisfied and they have a really strong sense of collegiality. I really like this finding. 86% of teachers agree that they can rely on each other at school. TELUS presents a lot of data about job satisfaction and it's used in a lot of different analyses and a lot of different ways. But what we can see that teachers generally have fairly high job satisfaction. We're getting almost 9 in 10 teachers are really satisfied with their jobs. You're getting about three-quarters of them, 74%, think that the good outweighs the bad. And again, a similar number would choose to go teaching again. We have this slightly more depressing finding that we have about 1 in 10 teachers who regret becoming a teacher. And we can see here, and again, I mentioned before about one of the things I love about TALIS is the comparisons over time. So this is just an idea about how job satisfaction changes over time. You can see it hasn't really changed so much of the OECD average, but you can see different countries. Some countries have increased their job satisfaction over time, some haven't. I've got to point out, I know obviously it's a Middle Eastern audience. The findings here for Australia aren't so great. With some of these professional outcomes, Australia has a rather big decline over time. But I guess more optimistically for this audience, we have seen increases for United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Actually, in fact, the Saudi Arabia has a reasonable size increase in job satisfaction. So I would certainly at some stage love to hear some insights from people within Saudi Arabia to know anything that's changed over that period of 6 years that's resulted in the teachers feeling more satisfied in their profession. Now, this one, unfortunately, is probably one of the more depressing slides of the presentation. What are some of the causes of stress around the different countries? We know teachers are saying they have too much administrative work. This tends to happen in all telecycles. This is a common problem. They have too much marking to do, too much lesson preparation, too many lessons to teach. They have concerns about keeping up with the curriculum and program changes, maintaining classroom discipline, being responsible for students' academic achievement, being responsible for students' social and emotional development. These are all sources of stress for many teachers. And we found that the stress tended to be a lot worse for female teachers, for our younger teachers, our early career teachers, and teachers working in disadvantaged schools. And we see here that just under half of teachers rated experiencing stress in their work quite a bit or a lot. And we can see here that we have 28% of teachers indicated that their job negatively impacted their mental health, and 23% of teachers indicated that the job negatively impacted their physical health. So a bit more of a sad slide. And we can see here stress over time. Again, you know, I've said this a number of times, but I do love this comparative data over time. And again, you see something really interesting with our two Arabic-speaking countries that we have the trend data. We see again they've shown a decrease in stress over time, and in the case of United Arab Emirates, it's rather a big decrease. So again, I would love to see insights from those countries about what is it that they believe has made a reduction of stress over time. Uh, and you can see in some other countries, and dare I say it, my country is one of them. You see rather big increases in stress over time. So again, it's really interesting to see why we're seeing such a big different pattern of results in different countries.
Maybe the audience, Dr. Tim, are really engaged with your conversation. So Saleh Ghalayini from I think from Saudi Arabia. He's from Saudi Arabia. He says that government entities' engagement and investment are strong reasons for driving job satisfaction in academia. And also, Hind mentioned something related to this, and she says that the government attention to teachers and the change of policies regarding education is a driving force for job satisfaction in Saudi Arabia. But still, we have some questions to come from Murad, maybe. And he's talking about job satisfaction in the context of a lot of duties that the teachers are being overwhelmed by. And maybe this is one of the areas, the change fatigue that the report was talking about. It is a growing concern here. A lot of changes are needed from teachers every year. So, how can ministries and training providers and introduce needed reforms without overwhelming teachers? Is this possible from your perspective?
Oh, I don't know if I'm quite qualified to answer that, but I see it's a big dilemma because we're saying that we want to you know try and fix some of these problems, and the way you do that is you change policies. But if you keep changing policies, it is overwhelming teachers. This constant change. I think we have a slide of it coming up. It's causing their concerns. So I don't really have a good answer to it. I'd be one of the people very interested in the answer for this. The only thing I will say is, to support those sorts of things, collect good data, such as data collections like TALIS. That will help you show if you're doing it right or you're doing it well.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. We're at the change fatigue graph. So that's really, really great timing. So what we see here is that the line shows us the percentage of teachers who think that there's too many change initiatives introduced at the school. So you can see the OECD average sits there at about talking about 1 in 3 teachers. Now, this wasn't designed from a layout perspective. You see that our 4 Arabic-speaking countries all cluster together and they're clustered together near the higher end. So it seems to be there's a regional issue of quite change fatigue from the teachers there. And if we have a look at the orange versus the blue, this is really showing who's getting more, I guess, fatigue from the changes. And what you're seeing there, that it's the more experienced teachers in many of these countries are reporting there's too many change initiatives. In some countries, you do see the opposite, but in more countries, it is certainly the more experienced teachers who have probably been around and probably been through so many change initiatives over that time there. So certainly an area that I think we could all try and improve on. And again, this one's quite interesting where we see a clustering for Arabic-speaking countries. This one's probably in a more positive way. Fulfillment of lesson aims. This is again another really important TELUS metric. The teachers who report fulfilling their lesson aims quite a lot. Teachers want to go out and they want to make a difference. They want to achieve their aims. And it seems to me that, in the 4 Arabic countries, particularly the 3 over to the left, you're getting really large majorities of teachers who are seeing fulfillment of their lesson aims in there. Uh, Now, again, the orange and the blue looks at differences between experienced and inexperienced teachers. We're not seeing too much difference there in the 4 Arabic-speaking countries. Now, intentions to leave the profession. There's I guess, a bit of a global problem in that, we talked about before about Jordan and other Arabic speaking countries have a lot of young teachers coming in, inexperienced teachers, which is really great. This is what we need to do to combat teacher shortages. But we have a problem that nearly 20%, so about 1 in 5 under the age of 30, intend to leave the profession in the next 5 years. This is obviously not something that we want. Obviously, there's been a lot of effort to recruit these teachers. We want to support them and to become experienced teachers to support our students. What are some of the reasons that are contributing to them wanting to leave the profession? Classroom discipline tends to be a big problem, preparation and amount of lessons, and responsibility for student achievement. But what we see a nice sort of positive, sort of protective factor is the joy of teaching. If you can make teachers really enjoy what they're doing, they're much less likely to want to leave. And we'll look now about professional relationships and sustaining the teaching profession. What we can see here, teacher shortages is a big problem. I probably don't need to tell anyone here. It's a big problem globally. It seems to be a problem in the many of the Arabic-speaking countries there. So, and this is where where they believe the shortage of teachers hinders quality instruction. And certainly, one of the things we know about why teachers want to stay is they want to feel valued. So they want to feel valued by their policymakers. And you can see here that the two Arabic-speaking countries with trend data tend to feel very valued. And we're seeing actually again, like like quite extraordinary gains from United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia in how valued they feel by policymakers. So again, that's a really, really positive finding where the Arabic speaking world can really sort of help educate the rest of the world. And this is about the perception of the value of teaching profession by society. You can see some pretty low perceptions here that the teachers don't feel valued by society in many of these countries. Again, they're feeling very valued in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia compared to other countries. Again, we see increases there. And finally, I want to talk about the relationship between teacher job satisfaction and professional relationships with staff. I should say that I could have presented quite a number of these slides, but they tend to tell the same thing. If there's really positive relationships with school stakeholders, not just principals, but with other teachers, with students, with parents, it tends to see better job satisfaction. And we know job satisfaction is linked to all sorts of better outcomes in there. And again, you're seeing that in United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, they're more towards the end there. The other countries are a little bit lower, but you're seeing the same thing in all countries. When teachers have better relationships with their principals, they have higher job satisfaction. So that was a racing through quite a lot of results. I'll just quickly go. I know we are running out of time. Just quickly, what are some of the things that we can learn from TALIS? And these are just only a small example. Certainly, teachers and schools should monitor the use of time. So make sure the administrative burden doesn't become too overwhelming. Ensure that time is set aside for professional learning. Lighten the early career load for teachers where possible. Protect weekly time for teaching, planning, and marking. We want to increase the collaborative atmosphere, as I said before, about making sure that the early career teachers are protected. They have induction programs, they have mentoring programs, they're collaborating with the other teachers, and make sure that the school community really value the teachers and show their appreciation for that. It's a tough job teaching. We want to, teachers want to use AI, they want to use digital technologies, make sure there's the appropriate systems in place for them to use that. Train staff on using these sorts of technologies, but also potentially how to use it to reduce administrative burden and develop AI literacy in students and monitor the developments in technologies. We know these things are moving at a very fast pace. And of course, professional learning is really important. And the
Mhm.
results suggest that maybe it's not always about the quantity, but the quality and targeting it to the areas that teachers actually need the professional learning. Reduce the barriers the stop teachers from attending. We know that time was often indicated as the reason why teachers don't attend professional learning. Make sure they have the time to do that. And consider the ideal mode for delivery. It's not always in person. It could be a combination of in person, remote. And how can educational systems use these results? Make sure that well-being supports are put in place. We don't want teachers being burnt out. Ways
Mhm.
to reduce time spent on administrative burden. Ensure appropriate professional learning is in place to make teachers more resilient to the causes of stress. Being careful about constant change. And workforce supply and stability. Protect our early career teachers. Encourage them to be valued. Provide incentives or support for the teachers in the more difficult to teach areas, the remote areas, or working at schools where more students have come from disadvantaged families. Explore strategies used by other countries. Use the comparative nature of TELUS to look at what are other countries doing that maybe your country can incorporate. And finally, have a look at things like high impact professional learning. Make sure they have access to appropriate professional learning, high quality. Make sure it's targeted to needs, quality over quantity, needed in areas such as classroom management, digital tools, and AI. And do what can be done to reduce participation barriers. And again, with the digital AI capability, provide regular up-to-date training that teachers need. Take steps to reduce equity in access. We know this is a problem in all countries. Establish appropriate safeguards, and finally use assessment policy to adjust for the generative AI era. Thank you for lasting this long. That's the end of my presentation. If you want to see anything more about TALIS, please go to the OECD report, and you're also welcome to look at our ACR TALIS page as well for further insights.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. Actually, we are really thankful for your insights and the report that is really informative and the session that is really engaging. Actually, we've got around 500 participants and it is increasing. We've got some time, maybe, if we can spare like 5 minutes. Uh, if your time could allow us so that we can engage with the questions from the audience. I've seen some questions in the Q&A part, and I'll start with a question from Dr. Muhammad Al-Momani, and he's talking about is there a way to make a correlation between the findings of TALIS reports and the other reports from PALS, TIMS, and PISA? So, is there a study or a way to correlate such findings?
Well, that's it's a really good question. The answer is yes. Now with PISA and TALIS, it could be done for some countries in 2018 because those studies actually were collected at the same time. So in some countries, there's certainly a link to do that. And I believe they would have been aligned again in the future, but unfortunately, the COVID-19 disruption through the studies are off track again. So yes, you can actually do a direct link in those cases in there. It might be possible in some countries where you might be able to sort of track TALIS schools with PISA or TIMS and Pearl schools. It would certainly provide interesting insights, but I think in most cases it's probably not directly possible. But certainly that data can be used to complement each other, even if they're not directly used to sort of correlate each other there. So I would say complement versus correlate, but in some cases it can be done and certainly has been done.
Yes, thank you. Maybe there's a question from Rafat Ayash, and he's talking about the rapid changes and unexpected, actually, changes in technology and the digital learning environments. And his question is, uh, would it be a need for traditional teachers in the future, or the role of teachers would evolve and change, maybe?
Yeah, no, I certainly I don't think we'll ever see a stage where the teachers will ever be replaced by technology. Certainly, though, I think, and I did hear a quote from someone at an OECD. I don't want to misquote them, but certainly it's possibly it will get to the stage where teachers who I guess are not utilizing the latest technologies might not have as greater outcomes as those that are more willing to learn and use these technologies. I think though, whatever happens in the future though, technology will never be able to. Technology might be able to help in terms of sort of designing ways to sort of teach students, but that social emotional connection will never ever be replaced by technology. But I would certainly advise teachers that do what you can to sort of try and keep up, even though it's very, very difficult with it's just changing so rapidly.
Yeah, thank you. Another question from Muhammad Umar. Uh, the question is, did TALIS included only public schools or private sector schools as well?
The TELUS population, and I would, it would be this in every country. It's a representative of all schools. So in Australia, we have three school sectors. We have the public sector, the Catholic school sector, and the independent school sector. Each country would have designed it in a way to select a sample of each type of schools. And in fact, many of the TELUS tables have a look at insights between public versus private teachers, and you can probably guess the way it is. Generally, the teachers at private schools tend to be have higher outcomes, things like well-being and satisfaction. A lot of it's to do with the types of students that attend those schools.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
think the
also,
private school teachers are happy with their salaries in general.
yeah, and we've got actually a question or a recommendation. It's like a question from Murad Masri. How we can use TALIS data to achieve employee satisfaction, especially in the participating countries. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think so. See, the report goes into a lot of detail, particularly with something like satisfaction. It goes into a lot of detail about the sorts of things that are associated with greater satisfaction. Now, TELUS data is correlational. We don't always imply causality that doing this thing means you'll have greater satisfaction in there. But there's certainly a lot of factors there that I would believe if you go through the report things that will help increase satisfaction. So things like removing stress. One of the things we see, for example, is like the number of hours that teachers are doing in non-teaching roles. That tends to gradually increase over time, and it's in some ways it's being larger than the amount of time they spend teaching. So I would certainly that was if I was in charge of all educational systems, that's something that I would try and look at ways to reduce that administrative burden, keep the teachers happy. Our teachers are
Mhm.
fantastic because they want to be teachers because they want to help the next generation of students in there. They like teaching. They don't like doing all this paperwork and stuff like that. So they're the sorts of things that I would look at to increase satisfaction.
Yeah. A question also from Dr. Iman Matalqa. How do the findings from TALIS 2024 report regarding teacher professional development and classroom practices can be used to develop the strategies, the teaching strategies here in Jordan? Is that possible?
Think so. I think, keeping in mind what TELUS what it can and can't do. Certainly, I would have a look at how it teaches what sort of professional development are they doing, what sort of professional development do they feel are they needing, and what sort of areas. So we saw things like AI teaching in multicultural, multilingual settings. These sorts of things that teachers didn't feel very well prepared in. So I would be having a look at that sort of data in there, even if we don't have data for Jordan for this particular cycle, looking at certainly regional and international trends. Where are the areas that teachers are expressing their voice, saying this is what we need to do? And that's what I would be looking at to sort of target for professional development opportunities.
Yeah. Uh, an inquiry from Susan Kamel maybe. TALIS is used just for teachers who are less, uh, who have less experience than 5 years, or is it applied to all teachers?
It's certainly applied to all teachers. So they select, this is primarily lower secondary teachers. They'll select all lower secondary teachers and they'll take a sample of those. But certainly a lot of the comparisons we do are the less experienced teachers versus the older ones. So no, we are testing them all. Don't worry about that. But that's where you get a lot of the very big differences between those inexperienced and experienced teachers.
Yeah, very interesting. Actually, we are 10 minutes exceeding our webinar time. So, if I just may ask you a last question, Dr. Tim, if there is one key message you hope educators in the region will take away from TALIS findings, what would it be?
Yeah, oh, geez, one key thing that'll be a little bit tough. So I think what we see is that again, I'll mention that our teachers they're teaching for the right reasons. They want to do right. I think it's making sure that they find time to do the professional learning that they need to do. Find ways to make sure that these administrative burden doesn't become too problematic. Make sure that they have these positive relationships with their fellow teachers with the students, with the other members of the school community, and look after their well-being. We want to make sure that our teachers are not burnt out. So take those steps to sort of prevent themselves from really becoming I guess sort of at the point where they're not teaching as effectively. We need our teachers to be sort of really sort of in a good place so they can really in turn help our students as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tim. Actually, we are really indebted for you, for your time and for your efforts in summarizing and showcasing the findings of TALIS 2024 reports. And we are sure that our education community here in Jordan, in the region, and worldwide would benefit from the findings of such important reports. Actually, I just would like to mention that there is a feedback forum in the chat box. So please provide us with the feedback on that. And again, Dr. Tim Friedman, thank you so much for your time. And hopefully we can see you again in other QRTA talks.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Shadi. I loved all the questions, all the comments. Thank you so much. I'm really honored.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.